The carriage moved on through the drove. "I can't make out why the corporation don't run a tram line from the park gate to the quays," Mr. Bloom said. "All those animals could be taken in trucks down to the boats." "Instead of blocking up the thoroughfare," Martin Cunningham said. "Quite right. They ought to." "Yes," Mr. Bloom said. "And another thing I have often thought is to have municipal trams like they have in Milan, you know. Run the line out of the cemetery gates and have special trams, hearse and carriage and all. Don't you see what I mean?" "Oh, that'd be damn for a story," Mr. Daedalus said. "Pullman car and saloon dining room." "A poor lookout for Corny," Mr. Power said. "Why?" Mr. Bloom asked, turning to Mr. Daedalus. "Wouldn't it be more decent than two galloping abreast?" "Well, there's something in that," Mr. Daedalus granted. "And," Martin Cunningham said, "we wouldn't have scenes like that when the hearse capsized round Dumfries and upset the coffin onto the road." "That was terrible," Mr. Power's shocked face said. "And the corpse fell about the road. Terrible." "First round Dumfries," Mr. Daedalus said, nodding. "Gordon Bennett Cup." "Praises be to God," Martin Cunningham said piously. Bomb. Upset. A coffin bumped out onto the road, burst open. Paddy Dignam shot out and rolling over stiff in the dust in a brown habit too large for him. Red face, grey now. Mouth fallen open, asking, "What's up now?" Quite right to close it. Looks horrid open. Then the insides decompose quickly, much better to close up all the orifices. Yes, also, with wax. The sphincter loose. Seal it up. "Dumfries," Mr. Power announced, as the carriage turned right. Dumfries Corner, morning coaches drawn up, drowning their grief. A pause by the wayside. Tip-top position for a pub. Expect we pull in here on the way back to drink his health. Pass round the consolation, elixir of life. But suppose now it did happen. Would he bleed if a nail, say, cut him in the knocking about? He would and he wouldn't, I suppose. Depends on where the circulation stops. Still, might ooze out of an artery. It would be better to bury them in red, a dark red. In silence they drove along Phibsbury Road. An empty hearse trotted by, coming from the cemetery. Looks relieved. Cross Guns Bridge, the Royal Canal. Water rushed roaring through the sluices. A man stood on his dropping barge between clamps of turf. On the towpath by the loch, a slack-tethered horse, aboard the bugaboo. Their eyes watched him. On the slow, weedy waterway he floated on his raft coastward over Ireland, drawn by a haulage rope past beds of reeds, over slime, mud-choked bottles, carrying dogs. Athlone, Mullingar, Moy Valley. I could make a walking tour to see Molly by the canal, or cycle down. Hire some old crock, safety. Wren had one the other day at the auction, but a lady's. Developing waterways, James McCann's hobby to row me over the ferry, cheaper transit by easy stages. Houseboats, camping out, also hearses. To heaven by water. Perhaps I will without writing. Come as a surprise. Leak-slipped Clonsilla, dropping down loch by loch to Dublin, with turf from the Midland bogs. Salute. He lifted his brown straw hat, saluting Paddy Dignam. They drove on past Brian Brewhouse. Near it now. I wonder how our friend Fogarty's getting on, Mr. Power said. Better ask Tommy Kiernan, Mr. Daedalus said. How is that? Martin Cunningham said. Left him weeping, I suppose. True loss to sight, Mr. Daedalus said, to memory dear. The carriage steered left for Finglas Road. The stonecutter's yard on the right. Last lap. Crowded on the spit of land, silent shapes appeared, white, sorrowful, holding out calm hands, knelt in grief, pointing, fragments of shape hewn, in white silence appealing. The best obtainable. Thomas H. Dennehy, monumental builder and sculptor. Passed. On the curbstone before Jimmy Geary, the sexton, an old tramp sat grumbling, emptying the dirt and stones out of his huge dust-brown yawning boot after life's journey. Gloomy gardens then went by one, gloomy houses. Mr. Power pointed. "This is where Childs was murdered," he said. "The last house." "So it is," Mr. Daedalus said. "A gruesome case. Seymour Bushe got him off, murdered his brother, or so they said." "The Crown had no evidence," Mr. Power said. "Only circumstantial," Martin Cunningham added. "That's the maxim of the law. Better for 99 guilty to escape than for one innocent person to be wrongfully condemned."